Welcome back to another episode of the Coordinated Chaos podcast. I'm your host, Georgia, and I'm just your type B bestie going deep on all things behind the scenes of building a business, women's health, and life's defining moments. Guys, we had a little hiatus last week because I was right here on this couch doing absolutely nothing. And as you can probably hear a little bit in my voice, I have been sick. I had the flu last week. So we took a little break from the podcast. Unfortunately, I had to cancel and reschedule a guest interview. But this week's episode, we're going to be talking about something similar, and it's going to be my take and my introduction to this topic. It is health related, but it's also not just specifically for women, but also for everyone. And we're going to call it what I like to call Nutrition 101. What has motivated me to talk about this topic today is the very fact that I have been having a lot of conversations in my coaching, in my in-person training, in all the different places that I work and with all the different clients that I see on a weekly basis about nutrition lately. And so I wanted to bring my nutrition knowledge to you on the podcast and share what I know about it. I am nutrition certified. I recently did a course with Women's Fitness Academy, and it was an amazing course. And it just really solidified what I already knew about nutrition, but really enabled me to put that actually into practice, and now able to also apply that to clients and just work with multiple different people with different things that they have going on in their lives. And for me, nutrition is, whilst yes, nutrition is nutrition, it's food, it's what you're consuming, it's also lifestyle. It's also talking about your culture and how what food actually means to you. I personally am a big foodie. I grew up in a family that we used food as a way of connecting, and we'd go out for food and we traveled the world and tried different cuisines. And I was also very fortunate that my mum was a food tech teacher, and she is an incredible, incredible cook. And I learnt a lot of skills from her growing up and a lot of passion from her as well. And then also, even like now, my dad is also a really fantastic cook, and he experiments with stuff and he likes to try different dishes as well. So yeah, my background, my family, the way that I was raised was very food centered, I guess. And my journey with nutrition along my whole life has been it's been this relationship with food that it is very central to our life, and it is a way of connecting. But also on the flip side, which I will talk about in some other episodes as well, is that I also have had, I guess, somewhat of an unhealthy relationship with food at times, which I've been able to overcome and heal. And I definitely want to dive into that separately on another episode. And it's more about emotional eating. It's more about comfort eating and how I was able to identify that I was doing that and then overcome it and like learn the ways and be able to articulate. It was kind of something that just kind of happened for me, which was good. I never had any worse behaviors, thankfully, not too much disordered eating on an extreme level. I'm thankful for that. But I definitely would say that I would turn to food when I felt stressed, tired, bored, lonely, things like that. And I was able to work through those things and figure out ways that actually helped me prevent that emotional eating pattern. Let's get back on track with today's episode, though. Today's episode, Nutrition 101, we're going to start by talking about macronutrients and what they actually are. Macronutrients are three main types of foods, essentially. You've got protein, fats, and carbs. So protein is what builds muscle. It supports recovery. It helps you stay fuller for longer. And it's made up of things like animal products and meats, fish, poultry, red meats. any seafood, things like that. And it can also be found in some vegetable sources as well. So you will see a bit of a crossover. This is something I like to always highlight as well, because if you are someone that doesn't eat animal products, you will have to source your protein from elsewhere. So things like legumes, chickpeas, beans, then you've got tofu, and then also adding in your supplements as well. So your protein powders, collagen powders, and things like that. I work from, just a small side note as well, I work from a food first approach, a food and lifestyle first approach when it comes to nutrition, which means that I prefer to source my macronutrients from whole foods rather than supplements. Whilst supplements can be very, very helpful as well, I definitely like to focus on food first approach. Couple of side quests already on this episode, but I feel like today is going to be one of those days. So hopefully you can bear with me. I'll keep getting back on track because I do have notes so we can make sure we're staying on track with everything. The next macronutrient I want to speak about is fats. And fats are what are good for satiating. They keep you full as well as protein. They are, however, one of the most calorie-dense macronutrients. So whilst, yes, we definitely need our fats for keeping us fuller and also for good gut health and good hormone health, which are interrelated, of course, and also brain fats, brain food. Fats are brain food. We do need to make sure that we are being mindful about how much we actually have. And I'll touch on this later, but this is part of the reason why it's really important to get educated around quantities of everything. And that can be done through tracking. It can be done by purely just educating yourself on knowing how much the calories of this certain macronutrient are in certain types of foods, and just knowing that. We also have two different types of fats as well. We have saturated fats and unsaturated fats. And we really want to make sure that we are not consuming too much of the saturated fats and more focusing on the unsaturated fats. So that could look like things like your avocado. You've got high fats in salmon. You've also got things like your dairy foods as well, but some of the full fat ones, if we have a excess of that, it may be over consuming it. We also have things like olive oil, some nuts as well, like your peanut butters. That's definitely a source of fats as well. But again, just making sure that we're not having too much of that. We're having it in moderation. And again, peanut butter, something like a nut butter, has a source of protein in it too, but it is mostly fats, right? So you can't turn to peanut butter to be your main source of protein in a meal, but it can be an added protein source as well as a fat source because it's multifaceted in its macronutrient. And thirdly, we have carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the fuel for your muscles during workouts. So it converts to glycogen in the muscle, which is basically glucose. And it's used in your workouts because it's a way that your muscles can actually fire and contract more. So this is the biggest thing with carbohydrates, is that they have been demonized essentially. And there are, again, more than one type of carbohydrates. We have our high GI, fast to digest, usually go straight to the muscle if they're used at the right time. And then we have our complex carbohydrates as well. So that's your whole food based ones or your multigrain and that kind of thing. So those are good for preloading, like the night before an event, a running event or whatever, something like that. And it's just about, again, making sure that we're having it in moderation, but also like everyone has a different requirement for each of these macronutrients. That's another thing to remember as well. And I'll talk about that a little bit later too, when we dive into more of like what you actually need each as an individual. But it's important that we're not just having carbohydrates in a meal, and we're not just having protein in a meal, and we're not just having fats in a meal. This is why we say a balanced plate is the best approach when it comes to your meals, because we need a little bit of everything to make it a balanced meal and make it fueling each of the different areas and purposes evenly. On the flip side, we also have micronutrients. Micronutrients include things like your fruits and your vegetables, your herbs and your salads, and things like that. They provide vitamins and minerals, and there is definitely, like I mentioned before, also some crossover with your uh, vegetables and your carbohydrates, and like with your beans and legumes, you also got your proteins as well. So you will see along the way that there is just like a bit of that crossover and balancing act, I guess you would say, when it comes to these things. But micronutrients sometimes get forgotten, I feel, when we're focusing so much on those macronutrients. These are the macros that you need to follow. These are the macros that you need to hit. But we also have to remember as well that micronutrients contain fiber too, which is obviously very important for keeping you regular, keeping your bowel movements moving through, also flushing out excess hormones in the body as well. It's really important for that too. Now, one little point that I want to make. When I talk about all of these food groups, notice that alcohol is not in there. And this is because it basically has no nutritional value. Okay. So when we are talking about nutrition for your goals, if you want to lose fat, you want to maintain, you want to have better health, and you want to perform well, or you want to gain muscle, those are the main goals that I would say nutrition play a huge part in. Alcohol doesn't really come into play. It doesn't really benefit you in any way. Like I said, a big part of food, especially in my family and my history as well, is enjoyment. And I understand that alcohol can bring a level of enjoyment to certain occasions, and your champagne and your bubbles has been incorporated in that celebratory kind of realm. But at the end of the day, if your goal is to be healthier, to lose fat, to gain muscle, and all of the other ones that I have mentioned already, alcohol may not be something that is incorporated into your lifestyle. And I think it's really important to remember that when we are talking about nutrition for your goals, that it's important that sometimes we're going to have to sacrifice certain things in order to get the goals that we want. I do believe that we don't have to be fully restrictive in order to reach our goals, but I do believe that sometimes making small sacrifices for a shorter term is going to get you your results faster. Okay? Sustainable results, do it with less restriction. But if you actually want to make a big dent in your goal and get there quicker, sacrifice is required. The next little bit I want to talk about when it comes to nutrition is something that I hold very closely to my heart. And I feel like there is a lot of conversation on the internet about calories in, calories out. And so in my mind, I call this quantity, right? But like I've already mentioned, when it comes to your macronutrients and your micronutrients, I think it's really important that we have a conversation also about quality. My background or my belief and my opinions about nutrition is that we must balance our quality and our quantity, and we should be focusing on eating mostly whole foods in our diet all the time. Not everything low calorie is optimal for health. We can now see this in the rise of gut health issues. All the foods that are low calorie and have fake sugars in them are ruining your gut lining and then causing further issues with your gut health. Maybe bloating, maybe it's loose stools, maybe it's constipation. There are so many things that can be like in your digestive system or happening in your digestive system that are symptomatic or are caused by not eating good quality foods. And I just really feel like it's really important. And then when I say food first approach as well, I personally believe that we should be focusing on getting our macronutrients and our micronutrients from food sources first. So, for example, vitamin C, very important for immunity. We should be trying to get that mostly from fruits and vegetables. B12 and iron from red meats. So, balancing having red meat and poultry, your chicken, turkey, if you like turkey, and making sure that we have that variety of different protein sources from animal base. Obviously, if you're not animal based, then you're going to be looking at other sources, like I mentioned before, your legumes, your tofu, your dairy sources, that kind of thing. And also just focusing on those animal or natural sources as opposed to protein powders all the time. Like if you're having 3 protein shakes a day and you're feeling really bloated, probably why. Focus on eating the most simple, single ingredient whole foods that you possibly can, and I can guarantee you will feel a lot better. When it comes to building meals, for example, if you are someone that likes your overnight oats or your porridge in the mornings, or maybe a smoothie, if there's not a lot of protein source in that naturally, which if you just make a plain porridge, there's not, I would then be suggesting to add in a protein powder, because then we're getting that satiation at the start of the meal. Is going to keep us fuller for longer. It's going to support our muscle recovery. It's going to support our muscle tone and longevity in life. The more muscle mass you have, the better ability to burn fat you have. So it is really important to be focusing on having protein at every meal, if not every meal and every snack as well, if you can. It is definitely something that you have to build up to. It's definitely something that you have to work towards. And also there is still a time and a place for non-protein snacks. Like we have such a big focus on protein in our health kind of society right now. But I think it's also still important to know that you can still have snacks that don't have protein in them as a treat in moderation. But if you have certain goals, like we've mentioned before, for your physique specifically, then it's really important that we're still incorporating as much protein as we can. And the amount of protein that everybody needs, I'm going to give this number to you now so that you know it. Protein per person per day, 1.8 grams per body weight to 2.2 grams. So there is a range, 1.8 to 2.2 grams per body weight. So times it by your body weight. And that is how many grams you should be having each day. So for example, for me right now, I weigh 77 kilos. And so that is 100 and, guys, I'm so bad at maths. Pause. 154 grams of protein per day. That is my goal for my protein. I recently just lost a little bit of weight, guys, so that's why I didn't know that off the top of my head. But I normally aim to eat around 130 grams of protein per day because 150 feels like a lot. And this is the other caveat to this. If you are someone that isn't eating that much protein at the moment, figure out how much protein you're currently having or thereabouts, and then set a target that is halfway to your goal. And that's why I don't do 150 right off the bat. I aim for 130 because I know that 150 is a lot for me right now. And once I hit 130 consistently, then I can maybe up it a little bit more and really focus on bringing that up. A couple of other things that I'd love to talk about when it comes to your nutrition as well is talking about um, hydration. Hydration is so important because I feel like it's kind of the missing, like, obviously we know we need to drink water, right? But I feel like it's the way that our body functions optimally. And I often can notice a difference when I'm not drinking enough water and I feel sluggish. My brain fog is more prevalent. I feel more tired. I feel more fatigued when I am dehydrated or I haven't had enough water. And also, I think as well, we do need to sometimes have some extra electrolytes, and that can also help us feel more alive, more awake too. Because if we are in, we're doing workouts or we're going to the sauna or we're spending time in warmer environments, like in winter when there's more heaters on inside, I think it's important that we remember that we're actually always detoxing and sweating out a little bit, even if it is just like minimal. And overnight too, you do lose some water in different temperatures and that kind of thing. So it's important that we are supplementing with an electrolyte. um, there are quite a few different supplement brands out there now. I personally like one called Ancient Lakes, and it has some other minerals in it as well, magnesium too, as well as potassium, sodium, and it's quite salty, but I don't mind it. Actually, I like salt, so I don't mind having that in my water, and sometimes I'll just add a little bit of flavor in there. My go-to right now is pomegranate juice, like 200 mils of pomegranate juice, topped up the glass with water with the electrolytes in it, and then also creatine. And let's have a little chat about creatine while we're at it as well. I've also had quite a few conversations about creatine recently, and this can be part of our supplement chat. And the same idea as I was mentioning before in a food first approach applies to my thoughts around supplements. We always want to get the most out of our food and to focus on incorporating a variety of different foods, a variety of different macronutrients, micronutrients, and different vitamins and minerals in our diet. But when some things are lacking, and supplementation also on a very specific level should be done with the help of a someone who can prescribe supplements to you more than I can, basically. But there are a few things that I think that most people probably should be having, and one of them is creatine. Not only does creatine help you with your strength overall, muscular strength, endurance, and help you feel like you're getting stronger day by day, it also helps with sleep deprivation. So if you are a newborn mother or a mum, a busy mum with a job, or you're someone that doesn't have the best sleep, you have disrupted sleep issues, whatever, and you often spend a lot of time fatigued or tired, creatine can really help you with your sleep deprivation. It's even been shown to help with jet lag as well. So my stack: creatine, electrolytes, pomegranate juice, which has high levels of polyphenols, antioxidants, and helps support gut health. It also has a little bit of the sugars and the carbs in there. So I would usually have that as potentially even like the start of my day, as a little bit of energy for me starting out my day. And thirdly, with creatine as well, is that it helps you with your brain fog, clarity, focus. And I genuinely feel a difference when I start my day with it than when I don't. Because some mornings I wake up, I would love to say that I am like perfectly consistent at everything, but I'm not. So I'll be honest about that. But sometimes I start my day 4:30 or 4:45 or 5 a.m. and I have to be out the door by 5:15 or 5:30 and I haven't left enough time to make my stack. So I'm not having it every single day, but I definitely do notice a difference when I don't have it. So I think it's really important to definitely give it a go. One of the most well-researched and backed supplements you can have for multiple reasons, as I've just explained. A couple of other ones, like I said already, protein powders if you need to add a little bit of extra protein to certain meals that don't already have a food first protein source in them. Some other ones, just depending on where you're currently at, might be like multivitamins or greens powders. But again, if you're having enough enough vegetables and fruits in your daily diet, that might not be necessary. I also am a big advocate for magnesium too. That's going to help you support you with your recovery, and magnesium glycinate will also help you with winding down and bringing your nervous system back down to a baseline at the end of the day and support your sleep patterns as well. The next thing I'm going to talk about is eating for your goals. So, eating for your goals, let's just say we're going to talk about fat loss, muscle gain, and maintaining in the middle. So, the way that I think about this is a scale. We've got fat loss on one side, maintenance in the middle, and then we've got muscle gain on the other side. So, the way that you would eat if you want to lose weight is to eat less, be in a calorie deficit. So, this is that conversation around quantity. We want to make sure that we know what our total daily energy expenditure is. And that will also mean that that is your maintenance calories too. This can be worked out online. There's a few different factors that you need to know to input, which is like your energy level, your age, your current weight. I think maybe your height as well. Yes, your height. So activity level, age, height, weight are all going to determine your TDEE. And that's the sum of our resting energy needs and our basal metabolic rate and our daily activities known as non-exercise energy thermogenesis. So this is the activity that we do when I get up and walk to the kitchen and I walk back, or I come up the stairs into my apartment, or I walk out to my car, or I walk to the shops, and any steps that I take during the day at work. That is your NEAT. These are like this is your incidental movement. And also the energy that we use during our structured workouts, which is called exercise activity thermogenesis. So the sum of that is your total daily energy expenditure, which makes up your maintenance calories. So when we work out our total daily energy expenditure, our maintenance calories, it already takes into account all of your activity at rest, your incidental, and your workouts as well, which is why it needs to know your activity level when we do the calculator. So this is really important to understand for when you are tracking on a tracking app like MyFitnessPal. That usually takes out the energy that we use based on like your phone, your Apple like health data and your activity levels, or if you have a Garmin, it might take it out of that too. So it's really important that we still stick to the number that we set based on our maintenance goals. When we eat in a calorie deficit, we want to eat calories less than your maintenance calories so that you already have this extra deficit. This might mean that you're hungry, and that is kind of the point, but sometimes you're not going to be hungry. You might actually have been overeating so much that you've realized you don't actually need that much energy to survive anyway. And your deficit level is going to depend on the intensity of how fast or slow or sustainable you want to lose weight. When it comes to muscle gain or gaining weight, we want to eat more. So it's what we call a surplus. So that means we'll take our maintenance calories and then we will aim to eat more than your maintenance calories in order for us to gain muscle, gain weight, and all of the things. Another way that we can also monitor or track the food that we are eating day to day is to use a model called the hand model. It's a really good guideline to follow if you're someone that doesn't want to track all the time, because it can mean that you can look at your plate and then be able to eyeball approximately how much you're having. So the rules for this one is 1 palm is 1 portion of protein. A closed fist should be 1 portion of carbohydrates. 1 thumb is 1 portion of fat heavy food. So like avocado, olive oil, butter. And 1 cupped hand, set of cupped hands, like 2 hands cupped, is 1 portion of fruit or vegetables, or a mix of the two. So that's 1 meal hand model. Another thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to nutrition, and I feel like this might be the last thing that we talk about today, or almost the last thing that we talk about today, is tracking your progress. So I've already touched on it a little bit. You've got the hand model. You could also be using a calorie tracker like MyFitnessPal. But what the other factors of tracking your progress may also look like weighing yourself, getting on the scales, taking measurements with a tape measure, taking progress photos. These are all extremely, extremely helpful tools to see the changes in our body that aren't scale weight. Scale weight is still good, but it doesn't tell us how our shape is changing. So I think progress photos are really important for that. And I think a really big shift that I like to use with my clients as well is what you're not measuring is not being managed. So you've got to shift your mindset out of, this is such a chore for me to be tracking. It makes me feel really uncomfortable when I get on the scales. Yes, but without knowing the data, we don't know if the nutrition is working, if that calorie deficit is working. We don't know if you're actually changing without looking at the data. And data is the scale weight. Data is tracking your food in your MyFitnessPal. It's the tape measurements. It's the progress photos. And these are all really, really crucial to know whether or not we're doing the right thing and eliciting the right response and getting you the results that you want. If without those things, we don't know what we're doing. It's not managed. You're just following a plan and hoping for the best. And then, 6 weeks later, you're like, I didn't get the results that I want. Well, we need to actually see data in order for us to tweak the plan and change the approach if it's not working. And if it is working, fantastic. We've got the data. We can back it up with the data. We can back it up with the photos. We can back it up with the measurements. Like, it's really important. And I think a lot of people get very emotionally tied to the number on the scales and the fact that, it's not working well and that kind of thing. So I think that's definitely a very important shift that is to be made when it comes to tracking your progress. I also just realized as well that like kind of jumps off the nutrition thing a little bit, but I think it was just really important. I wanted to share that as well because I know it's something that a lot of people struggle with. And whenever I say that to my clients, they're like, damn, I like that. That really makes sense to me. It's really helpful for me to think of it as just numbers and data. Now, I want to finish off this episode with my 10 golden rules of nutrition. And you can take it or leave it with some of these. They're just suggestions. Number 1 is try new foods that you haven't tried before. Maybe there's like pickled onions, you've never tried them before. Give them a go. They're low calorie, they're high in flavor. and they're whole foods. I personally think they're amazing. But there's a lot of other examples that would be similar to that as well. Try new things, try new recipes, try new methods that you haven't tried before, because sometimes that's going to keep it exciting. Number 2 is involving your friends and your family in your meal prep and your journey, I guess. It's really important that we have the right environment around us, people that are going to support our goals, people that are going to be on board with what we're doing. There is literally nothing worse than when someone tries to derail your progress or derail your journey and like what you're trying to achieve. So make sure you share it with other people. And maybe there might be this level of you becoming a leader in this space. Maybe you are someone that in your family or your partner, they are like ill healthy foods. This is your opportunity to also educate other people and be a leader. And I think that's really cool. I think it's a really cool opportunity. It's a really good thing for you to do. And whilst, there might be a little bit of conflict or tension in the beginning, you're actually helping those people as well. Number 3 is listen to your body and focus on how food makes you feel, especially when it comes to your gut health and your digestion. This is a massive one, and I think a lot of people skip this. They don't actually take notice of how they're feeling when they've eaten food. So I think this is also a two-parter too. You can also be feeling a certain way and then eat a certain food, emotional eating. Take note of it. The more awareness you have, the more ability to change you have. And then secondly, when you eat a food, how do you feel after? Does it make you feel more sluggish? Does it make you feel more energized? Do you feel less tired? Do you get a spike and then a drop? Take notice of the foods that you're eating and the way that your body responds to them, because it's trying to tell you something. And it's important that you listen to your body in that way. Number 4 is aiming for progress, not perfection. You're never going to be perfect right off the bat. A way that I like to explain it as well is like we need to build foundations and then add another layer. You can't expect to jump to level 10 if you haven't nailed level 1. So it's really important that you take it step by step and aim for progress, not perfection. Number 5 is all main meals should include a source of protein. It's going to keep you fuller for longer. It's going to support your goals, build more muscle. That's it. Do I need to say any more? Number 6, main meals should also be the main priority because they're going to be the ones that fill you up the most. Number 7, snacking is fine. However, you should try and add protein to your snacks. Eating in between your meals is, if you feel like you need extra energy or you need something to fill you up, is completely fine. But just being more mindful about the types of snacks that you're actually eating. What is the nutritional content of what you're having in your snacks? Do you really need it? But I just think snacks are sometimes demonized, and we don't want to demonize snacks because there's nothing wrong really with snacks if they're the right kind of snacks. Number 8, carbs play an important role in fueling our muscles before and after activity. So cushioning your workouts with some carbohydrates is ideal. I think this one is, the timing thing is more important for some people than others, but I think that I personally find that I feel better when I'm training if I've had carbohydrates beforehand. So I notice a difference in my performance whilst I'm training if I've had a little bit of carbs beforehand, usually a banana, rice cake with banana, a little bit of raw honey on there as well. I definitely find that that's really helpful. And then also having carbohydrate source after you work out alongside protein to replenish your protein and your carbohydrate stores is also ideal too. Number 9, both protein and small amounts of fat can help you feel fuller for longer. So obviously we've already talked about a couple of these things, but I'm just reiterating and solidifying what I've already said. And number 10, the final one, is eating fruit can help you curb your sugar cravings. Usually fruit, it's like light, it's refreshing, it's hydrating, and it has a natural sweetness to it. And I think also, again, fruit has been demonized in nutritional culture over the years, but I personally love to have fruit to help me curb my sugar cravings if I'm really feeling like something. But again, this also ties back into like your cravings too. I find that if I'm craving like something sugary, sweet, or like fruity, it's usually because I'm dehydrated as well. So keeping that in mind, obviously you can definitely have fruit. It's high volume, it's lower calorie, it's a natural source of um, sugars and carbs and will give you a spike in energy, but it's not going to spike it so much like having a packet of lollies or, like a handful of lollies. So it's a great source to help you curb those sugar cravings. I'm going to wrap it up here now, and I hope that this has been really helpful. If you're over on Spotify and you've liked this episode and you've got something out of it, please leave me a comment, rate the podcast, give me a follow, and tune in for our next episode. And if you're over on YouTube watching this episode, thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so that I can continue making these videos for you guys. And I'm going to see you guys on the next episode. Hopefully this head cold is cleared up and I don't sound so like nasally. So I do apologize for the sound this time, but we'll be back at it. And let me know if there's anything else that you'd like to know about nutrition, and I can cover it in another episode. See you later, guys.